Good morning, good afternoon, good late afternoon to some of you joining. My name is John Carroll. I'm the CEO and founder of the Service Council. And welcome to today's inService podcast series production here. You are in for a treat. You are about to be witness to a great collaboration here. We have two long-standing friends of the council, board member of the council, one of the OGs of the council, Linda Tucci, and her colleague, Tammy DeWind. Will introduce them just in just a few moments. We're going to be talking about Women in Service, an initiative we call WinS. We've branded that concept, and we've been building some momentum around this since last year's symposium. And this discussion will be built around allyship, mentorship, and leadership. It's a really important discussion, and I am just so grateful for the opportunity to be joined by Tammy here. Briefly, Tammy is on the verge of retirement. So this is kind of the swan song in her current role at QuidelOrtho. She's going to be doing much more to impact the service community moving forward after she enjoys some personal time. But I'm just so grateful to have these two colleagues here. Women in Service has been building energy, and we've been trying to build some energy around it. And listen, they are great women in service. They're great leaders in service. So the gender doesn't matter to us. These two are rock stars. You're going to learn a lot from them. And I look forward to hearing their stories as they've partnered together to create a world-class service organization over the years. So this event is recorded. It is accessible after the fact. You can share it. I encourage you to do so. We need allyship, and we need to raise awareness to this discussion. So please, share this as much as you can across your organization. Without further ado, let's go ahead and jump into it. Tammy, we're going to start with you. Let's have an introduction to you. We know you and love you, but our community might not. So maybe an introduction starting with you would be great.
Thank you, John, and thank you so much for having us here and such an important topic and near and dear to our hearts. And I thank you for always being such an advocate for women in service. So for those that don't know me, I am Tammy DeWind. I am the Director of the Americas for the Technical Solutions Center for QuidelOrtho. And I've been with the company about 30 years. And as John said, I'm getting ready to retire, but I will be still providing some sort of service, and mentoring is what I'd like to do after retirement. I am a medical technologist, so I worked in hospital laboratories before going into the technical solutions, technical support arena. And it is just servant-based. It's within us that we want to serve others. So it's been a wonderful career. On a personal level, I will say that I am happily married for 36 years. I have two sons, and they're both engaged, and I'm looking very forward to wedding planning in my retirement. So that is a bit about me.
Outstanding. Linda.
I too started my career as a medical technologist working in multiple labs, and later moved to medical device industry working in multiple organizations. And the various roles I've had over the 25 plus years have been primarily in service management, whether serving or in management for field service and the contact center environment. I've been with QuidelOrtho 10, almost 11 years now, and currently my role is Global Director for both tech support globally and service enablement. So we provide remote support to our customers, escalation support to the field, and also provide oversight prioritization to those, I'm going to say, critical initiatives that really drive operational efficiency improvements across what we call the service to resolution teams. At QuidelOrtho, we develop, manufacture instruments across a broad scope of diagnostics, immunoassay, clin lab, molecular, and our focus really is to provide a broad scope of diagnostic solutions, whether it's at home test kits to the largest reference labs. Personally, I'm married with 2 dogs, 8 chickens, and a cat. With more chickens to come in the spring, I'm not blessed by children, but I consider my team part of my family.
I love it. I love it. 8 chickens with more to come. And Linda is, the leader in the clubhouse for the most popular podcasts in the history of the inService podcast event. We were lucky enough for Linda to share with her colleague the patient experience that she went through on her personal health journey. So Linda, thank you for coming back and helping us raise the popularity of this podcast, because every time you're here, you take us up a notch. So thank you. Yeah. So let's get into it, Tammy. Let's start with you. What were some early obstacles in your career that you faced as a woman entering leadership roles? Why don't we start there? And I might have a follow-up, 1 or 2 behind that.
Sure. Thanks, John. I would say in the industry that we're in, women, there's a lot of women leadership, to be honest with you. So it hasn't really been any type of a gender situation, because medical technology and in the device, there are a lot of women. But I would say it's more of maybe a competitive aspect, woman to woman. I would say maybe not, the allyship may not have been there earlier in my career. And, as a result of that, you can develop your own self-doubt and imposter syndrome, if you will. So I would say there's that. If in all honesty, meeting Linda coming into, my life and at the stage of the career I was in, early on as a supervisory position, she really helped me see my own biases against myself, I guess I would say. And the confidence that she helped me see that was within me really helped.
Outstanding. And can you share maybe, an instance along that path where you had to advocate for yourself to perhaps gain the recognition that was perhaps deserved?
Yeah, I would say, let me think. I would say I was my own worst enemy. So, it's now, actually, sorry, I'm stumbling a little bit. There were a couple instances where there was somebody that I worked for that would present my ideas as their own, right?
Yeah. And
that's kind of hard to swallow, to not react, because I felt that as a woman, if I was reacting to that and say, hey, that was mine, kind of thing, it may lead people to think more, women are more emotional. It may not come across as you want it to come across. So in that instance, there were 2. The first time I didn't really say anything. The second time I was able to say, hey, thank you so much for presenting this. I know that when we met about it and I shared this with you, you were an advocate for me. So thank you so much for bringing this to others' attention. And so that was the way I kind of backpedaled into, hey, this was mine, kind of thing.
I love it. Well, Linda, let's bring you into the discussion in terms of, leadership style and do you feel it differs from male leaders in your experience or in your particular role? What are your thoughts there?
Well, it's interesting. When we look at classical leadership styles, I'm often told that, I'm a clear servant leader, and I would agree with that. That I really do focus on people's growth, well-being. That's really important to me. I like to say that my leadership style is holistic. I care about you as a person. I want to also take care of our customers in the best way. And Tammy and I always say that we do that by taking care of the people who care for our customers. I'm a big fan of when we talk about leadership style, to quote Simon Sinek, leaders, ones that are willing to give up something, right? Their time, their energy, ... whatever the quote is, leaders choose to eat last. That really resonates with me. Now, when I look at the variance of, women and male leaders, I've been blessed. My first boss in medical device, Bill Brennan, was so authentic, passionate about everything, and led with such integrity. He left a mark on me. So I started out with really strong bosses, and I've had some others that were the flip side, right? Maybe a very strong command and control. While I think that women tend to lead more focused on collaboration and relationship, we may have the volume adjusted at different levels. So I do think there's a degree of leaning more towards servant leaders, but there's plenty of servant leaders who are men that I've worked with. I think maybe it's how we show up. Do you know what I mean? We maybe show up differently. And that's why the balance and coming together really enriches the workplace when we're bringing together all of the various approaches, even how one would approach a servant leader style. I do say that, we may come at it in a different way. Does that make sense, John? It
totally does. Yeah. And Simon Sinek, I've been a long-standing fan of his, and he talked about blinders and how each of us has them, and how, we can only see things from our own perspective. But when we come together with a common sort of, shared vision, then those blinders and those biases may be taken down. And that was something interesting that I remember hearing him say during a keynote somewhere. The other thing I wanted to circle back to Tammy's conversation around emotion and how when women leaders advocate for themselves, oftentimes it's seen as a negative and emotional rather than they're just advocating for their own career path. What are your thoughts with respect to that? Because I feel like it's wrongfully labeled often. Any thoughts on that viewpoint? Any viewpoints on that?
Yeah, I've experienced it early on in my career, and it's interesting. It's interesting because I think in that experience where I thought I was advocating, but I was experienced in a very aggressive manner. Now, what people didn't realize at the time, it was really hard for me because that wasn't my style. And what I did was I probably pushed a little too hard, right? Now, I have had amazing mentors in my life, and that experience, though, caused me to really, truly understand the importance and the value of feedback as a gift. Because when I realized immediately that people were saying, wow, Linda's out of control. She's, what is happening?
Yeah.
I went around and I asked for feedback. Why are people feeling this way? And I realized that it was how I was being experienced. And so I really took a step back and then reapproached how I framed the conversation. And that's why I think emotional intelligence is just off the chart, so critically important, that you understand how you're being experienced. I've always asked for feedback proactively. That's just how I am. So if I found that when I wanted to flex a style or maybe present either myself or someone else in a different way, I positioned someone to help me, either provide direct observation, maybe coach me through role playing, so that how my message is intended is the message heard. Do I get it right all the time? Absolutely not. But I do think the understanding how the other is experiencing us and then flex so that the message is heard as intended. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. 100%. Yeah, absolutely. And I'd like to welcome you both into this next question around, this feeling, and I've heard this often from, community members that, that there's some limitations by gender expectations, and that might trickle into career progression. And there are organizations that are doing a really good job of creating an inclusive culture where those things are eliminated. And it all kind of wraps up underneath this glass ceiling or broken rung, right? That there's a different pathway for women in leadership than there is for male in leadership. Can I get your reaction to this? Maybe Tammy, we can start with you, and then we can get Linda's reactions after.
Absolutely, John.
How do we overcome that? How do we overcome this broken rung?
Well, I think there's a couple different perspectives here. So one, I would say, and we talked about this at Service Council, and when we started with our women's leadership, I would say if you think about a higher level position or a woman going being confident enough to go for a position that a male counterpart is going for. In my experience, what I've seen, whether applying or interviewing, is men will go in and they'll look at the job posting, they'll look at the credentials, and they'll be like, oh, well, I've got some of these, I'm going to go for it. Women, on the other hand, tend to want to check every box of the requirements in that in what's required for that position. So they're like, oh, I don't check all those boxes, I better not apply. So I think one aspect of the glass ceiling we may put on ourselves because we're not going for it because we don't have the confidence and we think we have to check all the boxes off, but when in fact we don't. And one of the things is to that growth begins at the end of your comfort zone, right? So it's there have been times in my career that I'm like, okay, can I do this? And I may be terrified, but giving advice to others is just go for it and hold out. Use your fear for good on the inside and believe in yourself. And it's all about also authenticity. And I guess that's my take on the glass ceiling personally.
I love those viewpoints. Self-doubt creeps in and all of a sudden the enthusiasm is curtailed, right? And it shouldn't be the way. It shouldn't be the way it is. Linda, what's your reaction to this continued, lingering glass ceiling, broken rung thing? How do we overcome this?
Yeah. My personal experience is that, I've never aspired to a role like a C-suite. And so I've never personally felt it, but I've seen it, right? Yeah. Broken rung more so I see. And I think Tammy brings up some real critical points about sometimes that self-doubt in not going for it. And that's why I would say, when we talk about how we fix it, it's the culture of the company. It has to be embedded in the culture from the fact that, I've been blessed with the most amazing mentors throughout my career. So mentorship, is that embedded in the organization? How do you sponsor that maybe underrepresented groups really have the appropriate opportunities and mentoring to position them well? I also think that just from a HR perspective, are you looking at the right data? Like, is the data showing that, does it make sense of your hiring practices, how you do promotions and such? And then who's doing the interviewing? Right? Is even your interview panels diverse enough? And I think an area that's critical and something I think we need to do even improved job on is around succession planning. How does the collective organization, but it's soup to nuts, but it has to be, when we talk about how do we really break the glass ceiling, this is a culture. It has to be culture first in the organization is my perspective.
Absolutely. Systemic change is needed in order to establish a thread of, even and balance across, growth opportunity, potential, et cetera. And Tammy, I want to circle back to you on something that Linda mentioned, which is mentorship, right? And the importance of mentorship. And what qualities do you look for in a mentor? And I think your colleague here that's sitting beside you was a key mentor in your career. What were some of the things that you benefited from in terms of Linda's mentorship? And what do you look for in a mentor?
Linda is the woman behind the woman. I would say she's been spectacular for me in so many ways. What I would say, number one is authenticity, right? that is huge with me. Whether you know it's people that I meet, whether I'm looking in a mentor or whether I am mentoring someone else, authenticity is key. And the I don't succeed unless you succeed mindset, right?
Yeah.
And Linda has the ability to see in others what they may not see in themselves. And she most definitely did that with me, because I'm just like, I was at the beginning, you know, we had a conversation, you know, early on. And she's like, so, you know, I've talked to a lot of business partners, you know, you've been with the company a while, and, you know, I've talked with people about you. And she said, you know, and really there's really only one person that is kind of doubting your ability. And I'm like, oh my gosh, who, right? And she's like, it's you. She goes, and that's what everyone said, it's you. And I'm like, oh my gosh, it was, she was right. You know, it was I did a lot of self-reflection, and I've seen this in others as well, but like Linda, you know, someone who over apologizes, right? You know, oh, I'm sorry. And be like, no, don't do that. You're minimizing yourself in ways that you don't realize. The other part, you know, looking for a mentor is to be that they can be completely honest, and that you can take the feedback, right? There are times that I was rough around the edges, or how was I being experienced? And that's the biggest thing is you may be unaware of how you're being experienced. So you need someone that you trust to be able to say, hey, you know, this didn't come across as I think you intended, and here are some ways to maybe phrase it differently. So those are that was huge for me with Linda, and she has been with me every step of the way. You know, we can finish each other's sentences. We share the brain. We say that often. You have the brain today. So I'm very blessed. She knows how important she is to me. I'm very, very blessed to have her.
Outstanding. If I could ask a follow-up. So
sure.
The importance of male allyship in this growth potential and this opportunity for mentorship. Any experiences there that you can share? Any positive takeaways where you've seen, you know, a male ally that's really helped to, you know, help refine or build the bridge to the pathway that you'd like to take, or that you wanted to take in your career?
Yeah. I've had some really, really good male leaders or advocates for me, very much so, especially in the field service aspect. You know, tends to be, you know, male dominated, you know, the field engineers and field aspect. But I had a colleague and a leader that would give me a seat at the table, invite me in, you know, include me from a few avenues. One, just bringing me into the field engineers, to their leadership team to get different perspectives, but also advocated for me and said, you know, I'm coming from a place where I want things better for our service organization, you know, so just helped give me a voice. I've had, you know, male leaders that have been very, very, very good.
That's outstanding. You know, Linda, on this topic of allyship, right? You know, it you know, oftentimes can, you know, find its way into this path of, listen, we need to put one demographic ahead of another. And it almost creates this adversarial barrier between those two demographics. But it doesn't have to be that way, right? You know, one demographic doesn't have to suffer so that another can ascend, right? So what are your viewpoints on establishing balance, and just on the broader topic of allyship? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I would agree. You know, caution is warranted that progress for one group doesn't come at the expense of another. You know, there's a danger if the efforts aren't balanced, the goals are not clear, you just end up with stronger silos, right?
Yeah.
And that is a true danger, and for many different reasons. You know, if the goal is lifting all the boats, right? The spirit of true allyship is really often about creating a culture where everyone can thrive, right? So that two-way street that you're talking about, ideally it's reciprocal, so mutual understanding, support, and advocacy. True dialogue is warranted, and to broaden, just say, right now I think we're going through a time where it's never so apparent that people are focusing on what divides and not what unites. So I believe that effective allyship really involves parties that are willing to learn from each other. And to do that, dialogue has to be there. I have to be willing to understand your perspective, right?
Yeah.
And so that goes, I'm going to go back to culture again. It has to be a healthy culture. So that conversation is there. I always talk about what's the quality of your conversation, right? So in a healthy culture, dialogue and conflict is embraced and not feared. And that's a special, place to be.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And Tammy, as we sort of, round the bend here on our conversation, you've had a successful career. You've risen the corporate ladder and done so many things for your organization. What advice would you give to young women who aspire to leadership roles? So what skills should we be prioritizing to take our pathway and take the leap down this path?
Yeah, that's a great question. What I would say first and foremost, before I get to the skills, is the mindset. Leadership is not a position, right? I think people need to understand leadership is not a position. It's an influence that you already have within you. Yep. So don't go after the titles, they will come, but it is how you're experienced. And that, we've all had managers that are just managers and not leaders. And there's a difference. So with advice for young women as far as skills, first of all, what's in you? Believe in yourself. Be confident, but most of all, be authentic. You have to be authentic. Emotional intelligence is key. If you're not sure of it, make sure you're looking into emotional intelligence. Read what you can. Take courses. Your communication style is really important, and other communication styles. So I guess I would look into, different types of communication styles and understand them, because you may have a communication style that is really at odds with someone else's communication style. Absolutely. And ask for feedback, ask permission to give feedback. One thing that I would say in meetings, sometimes if a woman interjects, and disagrees or has a different approach or idea to what is being discussed, if you just blurt it out, it's not experienced well. So again, how are you being experienced? And you could say, are you open to other opinions? Are you open to feedback? Yeah. Because when you do that, you are putting the onus on someone else. Now, if they say no, they're the ones that look bad, not you. Yeah. So I would say it's authenticity, it's empathy, it's confidence, and surround yourself with mentors. Join a women's leadership network. It was a long answer to a short question.
It was a great answer. Thank you. Thank you for all the insight. The topic of emotional intelligence and emotional quotient is so important. And you talk about communication skills. The other thing to this thing is, stress and conflict management, right? And how do you handle those types of things that come up every day in every business, right? And so I think that's a double click. That's worthy of a double click. I want to go to Linda and first, but I want to get Tammy's reaction after. So how do you see women in leadership positions impacting societal change? Are there any calls to action you'd like to leave our audience with?
I think women can impact change across the board in many ways. I think there is diverse perspective, and as I said, how we show up in our decision making, how we prioritize. We may prioritize different issues or approach problems differently, but there's unique strengths. my personal experience has been enhanced creativity, empathy, the leaning on the relationship collaboration, and the ability to serve as role models for other women, that can see what is possible, right? This concept of shadow of a leader, sometimes people need to see that there's that possibility of what they can aspire to. So if we say a call to action, for me, women need to support women. It's not a competition. And that needs to be in a very actionable, impactful way. And so I would say seek feedback proactively. I remind everyone you own your own career, but learn how to advocate for yourself and appropriately position your accomplishments. And to the men, I would say, get involved, mentor a woman, right? Absolutely. Reflect on how you choose for promotion, projects, highlights, right? At the end of the day, we need to all understand that we do have a degree of unconscious bias. But I think supporting membership programs for women in your organization, and if there's not a means to spotlight women where you sit, create one, right?
Absolutely.
What I mean? So I think that's important too.
I love it. Tammy, your reaction to the same question?
I would say women tend to be more collaborative, in my experience. Women bring collaboration to the table, empathy, community, and in a society, I think that's what women bring to it. They're more open to inclusiveness, right? More open to, you may challenge old paradigms, if you will. And so women can really just bring that perspective of inclusiveness. And I agree, we need the men to get involved. I'm hoping that I've raised two young men that will advocate for women, and I think that's it too, as parents or aunts in this world. You have a ability to influence our future, right? Our future women, our future young men that can actually advocate for women. So women are pretty awesome.
I totally agree. And I'm pretty confident you raised two boys that will be advocates. So kudos. And please, Linda, go ahead. Yeah.
So if I look at QuidelOrtho, when you look, I'm going to specifically focus on North America in particular, and the teams that I work in are Tammy DeWind, head of tech support, woman, head of field service, Beth Bachman, woman, head of application support, Cheryl Prophet, woman, head of global customer service, Paula Michelli, woman, head of customer experience, Karen Taylor, the awesome Karen Taylor, woman. Now, they just changed my organization. I now report to an amazing man, Matt Tice, and already I can see, the allyship there in a very impactful way. So I just wanted to highlight that because it is special.
That's awesome. And we didn't plan this, but I'm going to put Linda on the spot here for a moment. So you've had the fortune of mentoring and partnering with Tammy. Do you want to say anything to her as she moves into retirement?
What a beautiful moment. What to say? And I've said this before many times because it's been a very dynamic 10 years. And that I often say that we're only as strong as the weakest link in the chain. And when I was the weakest link, you did carry me. And behind the scenes, no one has taken feedback as you have. No one has been self-reflective. And if people could harness the passion that this woman has, not only for the people she serves, but for this company, our productivity would go up overnight and skyrocket. She has left a legacy on the organization, very big shoes to fill. And we have her on speed dial. So we have been truly blessed. And I'll just leave it at that.
Absolutely. Beautiful words. Beautiful words.
Oh, then you making me teary, Linda. Making me teary. I'm not ready yet. But
well, listen, Tammy, any words? Are you any words in reaction?
I would say, I mean, like I said before, the woman behind the woman. I can say that Linda Tucci is my dear friend, and I felt a difference the first day I met her. So, Linda, you have been such an inspiration and role model to me, and opened doors for me, but opened my confidence and given me permission to be my authentic self. And you're a treasure. You're a treasure.
So, I'm humbled. I'm humbled at the words.
Thank you.
I love it. Awesome. What a great moment. What a great moment. Thank you both for being featured on today's podcast. We had Tammy DeWind. We had Linda Tucci from QuidelOrtho, an organization that just gets it. Linda talked about the importance of women in leadership. And listen, if you are not thinking about diversity and that has been muted in your organization, you are really missing the mark. According to the Boston Consulting Group, companies that have more diverse management teams have 19% higher revenue due to the innovation that's happening and cultivating because of that diverse community that you're aggregating. So whether it's women in leadership, whether it's neurodiversity, whatever that diversity angle might be, ethnicity, et cetera, let's get it back to the top of our agendas, because it's a beautiful world when we have a more diverse team. So thank you to Linda. Thank you to Tammy. Good luck in retirement, Tammy. You have a lifetime membership with the Service Council. So let us know if you want to attend our conference, just to sharpen the axe and stay informed. So, and contribute, because you've done so much for us. So thank you so much.
Thank you, John. Thank you for having me. Thank you, Linda.
Thank you.
Have a great day. We'll see you on the next episode.